Well, hello there. Welcome to the August 31st, 2022 Ascension with A Course in Miracles transmission. So happy to have you guys here. Thank you so much for your understanding when I wasn't feeling well the last week and a half or so. But here I am feeling better and back on it. Oh, so good. So good to have you here. All right, beautiful ladies. Let's see. It's just three of us, three powerful women here. Super, super exciting. I went back to look at what we looked at last week, and it was, or the week before, was lesson 105, which is basically God's peace and joy are mine. So I confirmed that that is what we had gone over in anyways. But before we get started, I want to hear from you. How are you doing? Yes, Dondra, you go ahead. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Got that remodeling going on at that house. I'm back and forth with the construction workers and taking care of that. And it's like, I think I'm getting too old for all these projects, but whatever. I'm in the middle of it.
You're an eternal being. You are tapping into creative.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Thank you.
you're tapping into some creativity. So I hear you with these comments about, getting to a certain age and you want to change things. And now that I am a grandmother and I'm observing the things that my daughter does. And it's like, oh, wow, I did that like 30 years ago. I would never want to do that again. I would never want to start over with children again. But I love being with my child. It's just nice that I can do it, on my own terms. So I hear you at some point. I don't want to be going back and forth dealing with construction projects, but it is fun to remodel, as long as it's manageable and you feel like it's it's life-giving. You get to leave a little imprint of creativity still on the planet.
That's the way I'm looking at it. Yep.
Awesome. How are you doing, Miss Cat?
Well, I'm doing good. It's this trip. I'm still gonna call you. This flight I'm about to take has got my ego. I've allowed my ego to get really stirred up about it and concerned about it. And if Kelly's going to try to take a gun on the plane or not, and it's just gotten crazy, really crazy, and so I just don't quite know how to deal with some of it, particularly with her, and I'm trying just to let it go, and let her. But the truth of it for me is if I let it go, so does she. But she totally lets it because she won't. I just have fear around that she will not be prepared and that she's going to miss her flight or cause us to miss whatever. So, but I've got other concerns, personal concerns about not anything, unsurmountable, but insurmountable. I don't know. Anyway, so after our call Monday night, I'm just having to reach and realign myself. I just have to shift and lift. That's my main That's my main thing. And so for some reason, I'm having this anxiety about it. And it's just not trusting. And I know that. I know that.
That's
So
all it is. The ego doesn't want you to let go, because to the ego, letting go is the same thing as I've lost. And but to our higher self, to the God within, to let go is to recognize that there's nothing worth losing our serenity over. And it's a win. It's a win to our higher self to let go, but it's a loss to the ego to let go. And you are at the perfect place in your life where you have an opportunity, a lesson to determine which side of you are you going to give power to the ego or to the soul. You know, traveling today is no different than it was traveling before. You get your ticket, you board the plane, they're still going to give you crappy peanuts, they're going to give you a very limited selection of beverages. You're going to sit there next to maybe people you know, maybe people you don't know, and then you're going to go across the country somewhere. They're going to open the doors, you're going to get out. That's all that it is. You're going to be encapsulated for a period of time with a whole bunch of people. The process has not changed. The getting yourself worked up is the ego doesn't want you to realize that there's nothing different to how you used to travel before. If you want to wear a mask, you can. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't. If your daughter decides to bring a gun and she gets stopped, okay, they stop her. So what? And when you get at peace, so what? So if she doesn't make it to the wedding, so what? The wedding can go on. Everything can continue. So what if people say things about her? It doesn't matter. If she is so set on doing something, there is a reason why she is being pushed into this insistence to do whatever it is that she feels she has to do. There is a driving force that is moving all of us to participate in this world in ways that give us the opportunity to get honest with ourselves. Is that coming from our higher self or our lower self? That's it. You don't have to figure it out for her. You just have to figure it out for you. And when you decide that you don't want to lose your serenity, you rather have peace instead of any drama, then your life is just going to become a very entertaining experience, because every single being is doing whatever it is that they are believing they're supposed to be doing. And whether it's from ego or not is really irrelevant, because the ultimate test is you. Where are you coming from? Your peace or not? Are you coming from love or are you coming from fear? And you now know too much to lie to yourself for too long. You know, you still get caught up in it and still might think that, you know, you're right in your way of doing it, but you can't stay there for too long anymore, because deep down inside, the honesty has already kicked in, and it's not going to let you stay in a place of total and complete denial of the truth for too long.
well, I don't have a concern that I'm not actually all that. I'm not that concerned about flying for myself. It's I mean, I say that, and I believe that it could be simple and easy.
Mhm.
And my thought is that Kelly is complicating it terribly with this one issue. And I can't quite figure out, but I have to stop that, trying to figure out how to.
Yeah. But she has to follow her inner guidance. Her inner guidance is not going to be the same as yours. So she has to follow the thing that she believes she has to do. She has to do that. That's the impulse in each and every one of us, moving us through whatever it is that we're supposed to move through. It's when we think we know better for somebody else and we attempt to interfere, that's where, the ego begins to get involved. If you mind your own business and move about doing what you need to do to get you from here to there, when you need to be there, you focus on there'll be no issue. It's only when the ego wants to control other people's behaviors that you're having issue. So don't let your ego lie to you. Kelly is not affecting anybody. She's doing Kelly. You need to mind your business, get your mind in your personal business. That's why the Course in Miracles is mind training. We need to mind our own mind our own business. You could decide right now that there would be no issues if you let her do her and you do you.
All right. Well, I let me ask. I hope it's okay if Dondra, you don't mind. I'm asking her these questions.
Oh.
I pulled up information about what has to happen if you're going to take a gun. What you have, because there are definitely stringent regulations. You can't.
Of course.
Yeah. So should I send that to her or should I just not?
So just check in. Can you send it and just let it go? And what she does is only going to affect her.
Yeah.
I would imagine you have your ticket. It's separate from her ticket.
Right.
You board for you. If she doesn't follow the rules, she's going to find out the rules. But the bottom line question is, what scares you about her not following the rules? How, because this is where your fears come in. So what if she gets pulled off the plane? So what? How is that going to stop the wedding? How is that going to stop anybody from having a good time at the wedding unless they choose to use that as a reason to not enjoy themselves? Why can't you go to the wedding? It's not her wedding. It's her, it's the grandchildren's wedding. Why can't you just go on and enjoy yourself and let mom have the whatever consequences mom needs to have?
Yeah. Okay. So that answer to that question depends on how I do it.
If it's coming from love, honey, I saw this. I thought I'd pull it up and I'm sharing it with you. You do with it what you will. And no, it's unconditional, no strings attached. It'll be what it will be. If you better read this and understand this, and if you don't follow this, then you're going to get us in trouble and it's going to mess us up. Then that's your fear speaking, and it's not going to be beneficial because she has it in her. There is an insistence that wants to have that experience, and you are pushing against that insistence that wants to have that experience with an insistence that you don't want to have that experience. But you don't have to have the experience if you just let it go. Let her have her experience.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's really hard. Really hard.
It's not hard. Your ego just wants to be right, and that's what makes it feel hard. But if you can just step back and say, she's entitled to her own journey, it does not matter. And you insist on being at peace, and you insist on you having your experience. This is a non-issue.
Mm. Okay. I'll. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what the Course in Miracles has to say to us in lesson 106, because everything that the Course is about is attempting to get us to understand that our mind has been hijacked by a thought system that is about control. It's about fear. It's about rights and wrongs. And whenever we are dealing with right and wrong, hierarchy, you decide and you don't, you control and you don't, we are going to experience suffering. There's just no way around it. The only way where peace is possible is when everybody gets to do what everybody wants to do. Now, granted, not everybody is operating from their soul. A lot of people are operating from the ego, and it's going to have repercussions upon many of us. But if we find our peace with God, then whatever those repercussions are, we see them as experiences that we are having while we are in a physical vessel, but we do not allow those experiences to define who we are as the eternal child of God, as the eternal beings that we are. These are just all temporary experiences, and giving ourselves permission to just be present to the ever-changing world of the ego is one of the most important steps that we must make, because then we can sit back here as an observer of the dramas unfolding before us. But we came here to watch drama. That's what the 3D planet that we are ascending out of is full of drama. And when you can step back and observe it and are no longer attempting to control the drama, you now have freed yourself from the drama, and you will observe it until such time that ascension happens, whether it's the next incarnation or we experience those shifts while in this incarnation. But the goal here is to free ourselves from reacting to the way the ego has set up the 3D world, because the ego has made this world into an insane asylum. And for a while, we are going to just simply observe the insane asylum. We're going to sit and just witness, watch it, and don't get involved. Just observe it so that you can find that you can control what you feel inside. It is totally, completely, 100% under your control. No matter how crazy it might appear out there, you can rest in the seat of your soul out here. That level of spiritual maturity, which is be spirit, observing what is necessary for the shifts that are coming for those who are ready to the next level. See, if we don't pull back, we're not ready for the next level. We're still too involved in the 3D world. When we pull back, then we are basically ready, preparing ourselves for what's next for us. And everything is going to be shifting according to our level of readiness. And readiness as an observer of what is absolutely crucial, absolutely crucial. All right, so let's listen. Let's listen to that noise.
One question before we go.
Yes, yes.
It's along the same line. We have their God laws and their man laws. And so many of the things that are being implemented on us now are man-made laws.
Yeah.
So do we just go along? I mean, I know you've got to abide by the law or you will get arrested and go through all that crap. But how much of us do we have to give up to abide by these man-made laws when we know they're wrong and they're not effective?
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
I
Okay.
totally hear you. So we are in an in-between period where we are aware that we have the man-made laws. These are the ego-made laws that have created basically all of the problems that humanity is experiencing. And we are in the midst of observing the shift from man-made laws, ego laws, back to God laws. While we are in this in-between period, our work is to acknowledge that we are operating very much so under human laws. And our work is, sorry, we've got some construction people here and the doggies are going to be working. Let me just shut this door real quick. Okay, sorry about that. All righty, so our work is really to sit in a place of observer. We are going to go through an uncomfortable period of just absorbing what is happening. As an observer of what is happening, you are going to know that what is being asked of us is not of God. And you have to, in that moment, ask God what is yours to do. We can't premeditate what are we going to do in 3 days, 3 months, 3 years. I'm only going to do God's law. In a way, yes, you're just going to listen to what God has you say, but what God may have you do might look very different today or in 3 years or in 5 years. So our work is to get so clear with our relationship with God that we ground ourselves in the most peaceful place within, because it is from that place that we are going to be able to follow the guidance that helps shift us back into God's laws. And, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, he followed God's laws. He went to the cross without fear. Was it man laws that he be crucified? Yes, it was. Was it man laws that all, so his apostles, so many of them became persecuted because they were associated with him? Yes, that's all man-made laws, but they were necessary moments because for each one of those apostles, they had to have internal experiences that allowed them to see, did they follow God or not? And that is ultimately what matters. It's not that you do the human laws or not, but that are you listening to God inside of you? And while we are so concerned about the human laws, we are going to be distracted from listening to what God would like for us to do internally. That's really where the work is how can I come to the place of peace where I can abide in peace inside of myself. So let's listen to lesson 106. How perfect with this specific conversation. Here, lesson 106, the title of it is, Let Me Be Still and Listen to the Truth. Very, very simple. There's nothing else to this, but simply let me be still and listen to the truth. So let's start with paragraph number 1. If you will lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept its petty gifts that give you nothing that you really want, if you will listen with an open mind that has not told you what salvation is, then you will hear the mighty voice of truth, quiet in power, strong in stillness, and completely certain in its message. It doesn't get any clearer than this. If you are willing to lay aside the ego, if you are willing to lay aside, and that's the voice of judgment, that's the voice of rights and wrongs, it's the voice of fear. And once you can distinguish that voice for fear, and you decide, I'm going to put that voice aside, I'm feeling the fear, and I'm going to just sit here, and God, I'm feeling the fear. I absolutely admit it, but I want to hear your voice above the voice of the fear. I want to hear your voice above everything else. Please, God, tell me, what is it that I need to know? You are training yourself in overriding the ego. And that is part of what is so important, is that we have got to train ourselves on overriding the ego, because the ego is the only part that is invested in blocking God. It's the only part of us that can block God. And it's the one area that we must learn to face square on and say, no, I'm not going to listen to you. Yes, I'm feeling the fear. That's okay. We want to be honest about what we're experiencing. I know I'm listening to fear. I'm shaking in my boots. I'm worried. I'm concerned. I think things are going to go terrible. I think, something bad's going to happen. I'm concerned about all of those things. But I know that there is a still voice that will give me peace. It will give me clarity. My work is to get to that, to listen to that one. So here, it is so clear. Let me read this again. If you will lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept its petty gifts that give you nothing that you really want, they're just giving you anxiety, confusion. Why would you want that? Don't listen to the voice that makes you anxious. If you will listen with an open mind that has not told you what salvation is, I only want to hear the voice that gives me clarity. Then you will hear the mighty voice of truth. It's quiet in power. It is strong in stillness. You will feel it. You will feel the stillness, and completely certain in its message. There is a clarity. It's an unequivocal clarity that can only be experienced when you make the decision to only listen to the voice that gives you that message. Paragraph 2 says, listen and hear your Father speak to you through his appointed voice, which silences the thunder of the meaningless and shows the way to peace to those who cannot see. Be still today and listen to the truth. Be not deceived by voices of the dead, which tell you they have found the source of life and offer it to you for your belief. The voices of the dead is nothing but the ego that has stripped humanity of its life force, that has shackled humanity. When we keep hearing the voice that tells us, well, you everything will be okay if you can make them give up their power. Everything will be fine if Kelly will just follow the rules. Well, that's the very thing that we are attempting to move out of. We've been following the rules of the ego, and it has made us dead inside. And if she is feeling this, whatever surge of adrenaline for taking this particular weapon with her, if that gives her a sense of aliveness, who are we to go against that? That is, I know it's sometimes very difficult. What do you mean? So we're going to let whoever wants to do whatever they want to do, let them do it? Yes, we are in the mess that we're in because we haven't been doing what we feel now, that is that overriding desire inside of us that wants to express itself. We've got to stop deciding who is right and who is wrong. We're going to go through a period that everybody needs to do what it is that they want to do. Now, granted, there's going to be some chaos. That's just the way that it is. But you can't give people the ability to do as God wants them to do what is ours to do, while we still want to control. We've got to get rid of control altogether, sort through what is happening by each person minding their own business, coming in and minding their own mind, doing what is right for them. Yes, we have major chaos ahead, while we are going to feel like it's the wild, wild west. But those who are listening to God are going to be examples of the way, the only way that is possible, which is for us to have a direct connection, as it says in here, listen and hear your Father speak. We don't know how to listen to our Father speak. We are not used to listening to the voice of the Father. We are not used to what that is about. So we are being trained in listening to the voice that is very clear, very still, and it's going to be going up against so many things inside of a world that we are just not used to, operating at a level of clarity that discerns what is God speaking to me, what is right for me, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. Miss Ginger, welcome. Welcome to our group. So glad to have you here. So we are going over lesson 106. And the title of this lesson is Let Me Be Still and Listen to the Truth. And now we're reading paragraph number 2. So to continue here on paragraph number 2, listen. I'm going to start paragraph 2 again. Listen and hear your Father speak to you through his appointed voice. All of us have the voice of the Holy Spirit, as the Course calls it, which is the voice of our intuition. Most of us, especially when we enter into a spiritual journey, we have all kinds of ideas about what the voice for God is, about what the Holy Spirit should be, about what sounds godly, what does not. All of that is part of the process that we go through until we get to the place that we actually feel the voice for God. And when we feel it, we know it, as it said earlier, that it is quiet, it is truth, and it is strong in its stillness. Doesn't need to mince words. It's very clear, and you feel it in your heart with an incredible certainty. So as we listen and hear to our Father speak to us through his appointed voice, which silences the thunder of the meaningless. That's all the ego does. The ego is nothing but a thundering voice for meaninglessness, about how I look, about how much I have, who likes me, who doesn't like me, my title, my position, my status. All of those things are the meaninglessness of what the ego has taught us to believe is important. And right now, we are literally on a bridge crossing from the meaningless to that which is full of meaning. And the Course in Miracles wants us to understand that that bridge that we are crossing into meaningfulness is only going to be felt within. It's going to be felt, it's going to resonate in every fiber of our beingness, because we are going to feel truth. We have been confused with lies. We think lies are truth. We think that there are people on this planet that have power over others. And we believe that. And we say, oh, yes, the president or the CEO or the boss or the husband, they have power. All of that is meaningless. It's all made up, totally, completely made up by the beings who have been operating on this planet as if that was the reality. What's happening is we're waking up. Many are waking up and realizing, no, there is another reality. And the reality is the place where we and God are one, where there is an absolute connection between father, mother, child being. as Jesus taught us, I and the Father are one. So our work is so challenging because nobody can know what this truth is for somebody else. It's just not possible. Everybody has to come to that truth within themselves. We have to feel it. We have to know it. And there is only one litmus test for it. That's it. There's only one way to know it is your truth. And it is by how you feel. It leaves you feeling peaceful. It is very startling when you begin to listen to the voice for truth, but there is a level of peace that comes with it. And of course, we are training ourselves to move beyond what the ego wants us to be believing about these things, because we are literally shifting. It's 180-degree shift. We are leaving what we thought was real. We are leaving a world of controls and hierarchies and things that are absolutely not true. A world of sickness, a world of aging, a world of death. All of that is what the ego has had us believe is our reality. To move to the world where the truth is that we are eternal, we are non-physical. There is no such thing as our soul ever being sick. It is not possible. We have to learn to balance ourselves, knowing the truth inside of us. My soul is eternal, but my physical vessel is going through this experience, so that we can be in honesty about what is happening to the physical vessel. We address it as we need to address it in the moment that we are experiencing that. But at the end of the day, we are cultivating a relationship with our eternal self. This is the non-physical aspect of who we are that does not die, period. And until we make that decision that that is our ultimate reality, we are still going to be inside of the space of fear with the way the ego operates, in terror that anything is going to happen to the body, that it's going to age, that it's going to get sick, that it's going to get hurt, that it's whatever it is. So we got to find a place of peace in our mind, while at the same time, we are addressing the physical that is happening, that is very, very polar opposite of what the Holy Spirit wants us to be experiencing within. So we are going to have a lot of confusion for a very long time. What is of the ego and what is of God? But the only way to ever find that peace that passes all understanding is to cross that bridge and ground yourself completely in the truth that is true always. And it's, as it continues to say here, we have to silence the thunder of the meaningless, and shows. So this is, we got to listen to the voice of the Father, and shows the way to peace to those who cannot see. We cannot see the peace of God. We have to feel it. This is why it's an inside job, and nobody can do it for you, because you have to feel it. Be still today and listen to the truth. Be not deceived by voices of the dead. The dead is the ego. The ego is what appears to be alive, but it's dead inside, and it's dead inside because it's not listening to God. That's why the ego is dead inside. It has no life to it, because it's constantly seeking scraps from wherever it can find it, taking the joy from others because it can't find its own. So it settles for this idea that being in control somehow makes you happy. And of course, to the ego, you can't convince an ego that that's not true. But once you see that this need for control is the source of our misery, you become one who enters the journey of giving up control, letting it go, knowing that you are going to be way better by giving up control. And that means you're going to learn to flow. You're going to learn to flow with what is. When we're flowing, that's when we stop being controlled by time and space. That's when you're not going to be listening to what others tell you. You got to follow the clock so that you will, because that's the way that it is. It is a process of incredible courage to little by little say, no, I'm not going to listen to the clock. I am not going to follow your rules. Now, granted, everybody that is on this planet, we make appointments with one another. We meet at the coffee shop. We go to the wedding. We got the date for the wedding on the calendar. We have specific things that we're going to be doing. So there is a level of using calendar, and it's okay. It's not that we're not going to use it. It's just that the calendar's not going to run our lives. If you want to go to the wedding and it makes sense to you, then you'll put it on your calendar and you'll abide by that time. But if you are freeing yourself from the matrix, you are going to be listening to a rhythm inside of you. You're going to be more connected to nature. You're going to be paying attention to the lunar cycles. You're going to allow the rhythm that is natural for you, that operates inside of so much more than a piece of paper, a calendar made up by somebody, by the way. These are all ways that we unplug ourselves from the matrix, and they can be very profound in many ways, but you need to enter into these shifts with an understanding that they will upset the ego. It's what gives the ego a sense of control and safety and security, but that's what we're pulling out of. So you use these things, you test these things at the pace that it makes sense, but know that as the Course in Miracles teaches us, what is of God is absolutely completely opposite to what is of the ego. And the ego, again, the ego is all about fear, control, manipulation, winners and losers. And what is of God is about equality, is about collaboration. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And once you decide that you want to live your life in a flow, in collaboration and co-creation, and acknowledge that you have a physical vessel for a period of time that you get to use, well, then you take care of your body vessel, you follow the calendars, you go to bed at a certain time, you get a certain amount of sleep, but you will find that it's not because the calendar tells you so, it's because there's a rhythm in your body that you are listening to. It goes on to say here, be not deceived. This is paragraph still number 2, sentence 3. Be not deceived by voices of the dead, which tell you they have found the source of life and offer it to you for your belief. Attend them not, but listen to the truth. How do you listen to the truth? You have to feel for the truth. And depending on where you are on your journey, the truth feels very different the more mature you become with it. The more you are certain of what the truth is, the more certain you are that you are non-physical, peace feels very, very different. Early on, oh, I think I am non-physical. I think I'm made of energy, but you don't fully trust it because you're so busy with your body, your stuff, your, doing your yoga because you got to look hot. You're not ready to feel that you are non-physical energy if the body is so important. And there is a period of time when we are going to make that transition. It's just all the mind getting reoriented to the physical is an expression, but it is not what we actually are. What we are is the non-physical energy manifesting as a physical vessel. That shift has to happen in the mind completely before you can feel the peace of it in your heart so that you'll have no fear of death. It's impossible to fear death. It's impossible to fear anything that happens to the body because you can deal with whatever temporary experiences we are here to have in the 3D world. So while we are continuing to listen for the truth, we are always gauging inside. How does that feel? How does that feel? Because at the end of the day, the body doesn't lie. You can feel contraction. you can feel expansion. You can feel when you're tight and tense and in unease, in fear, and you can feel when you're at ease and at peace, and you are not of this world. But that takes time. Paragraph 3 says, be not afraid today to circumvent the voices of the world. This is one of the most important lines you can possibly hear in this lesson 106. Be not afraid to circumvent the voices of the world. What that means is don't be afraid to ignore the voices of the world. It's okay to totally, completely begin to test. I'm not going to listen to what mom said. I'm not going to listen to what the preacher said. I'm not going to listen to what the president said. Because as you make a decision to not listen to what the outer world says, you're strengthening your conviction to listen to what God is saying in your inner world. And you're the only one who can tell the distinction between listening to the outer world and listening to the inner world. They sound very different. They're very, very different. The feel, the texture of intuitive knowing is very different than the wah, 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 wah of the outer world screaming in your ear. Very, very different. So let me repeat this again. Be not afraid to circumvent the voices of the world. That's how you prove to yourself that you have your own best interest at heart, that you are willing to go against what the world tells you is the rules that you're supposed to follow. And when you decide, no, I'm not going to follow that rule, I'm going to follow the voice of God within, now you have made a decision to stand up for you. And then who is the you you're standing up for? Well, that's your higher self. That's the part of you that you're cultivating a relationship with. And you will do whatever it takes, because this is something nobody can help you make this decision. You have to make it yourself. Is once you decide and you have that conviction, you know what? I've got the courage to say no to what I've been told my whole life I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm going to start feeling my way and doing only what feels good to me. That is a major break in the matrix. You are not listening to what you are being told to do. You are now setting the bar for the authority that you're listening to has just been raised. You now are listening to the one that you are beginning to cultivate trust in, that is not of this world, but you are learning to feel it. You're learning to hear it. You're learning to trust it, because it's all about trust. At the end of the day, it's all about trust. Sentence number 2 says, walk lightly past their meaningless persuasions. The outer world has been persuading us. Meaningless persuasions. How much makeup have we bought? We've been persuaded it's going to make us look beautiful and young and stay forever young. It can't do that, because there's nothing in this outer world that can keep the physical vessel from aging, because the physical vessel is a product of the 3D world that has a time of expiration. I mean, it's going to have a birth and a death experience and everything in between. So we have been so conditioned, so persuaded to try to battle and hold on to that which is temporal, and not cultivating a relationship with that which is forever permanent. And it is. Not only is it forever young, truly, it's because it's eternal and cannot possibly age or decay. But for us to have a relationship with that part inside of us, we must no longer care what the outside looks like. Because for this incarnation that we're in, if this is one of the last incarnations that we're going to be asleep, the physical vessel is going to experience whatever the physical vessel needs to experience that is the result of our egoic conditioning. The next lifetime, if you are awake in this lifetime, when you reincarnate in the next lifetime, you are going to come in already knowing the truth of your eternal self. Your body is not going to age. It's not going to need to age. But in this incarnation, it needed to age because it was carrying the density of the egoic thought system. So in this lifetime, don't worry about what the physical vessel is going to look like, because it's going to be the result of the accumulated karma, the accumulated density from this lifetime. The next lifetime, what matters is that your consciousness leaves this lifetime aligned with the truth of your eternal self. And when you reincarnate, you incarnate at that level of consciousness. When we move into the higher dimensions, as we continue to progress towards living life on planet Earth from love, not from manipulation, not from greed, not from scarcity, but from love, from abundance, from sharing and caring, our bodies are not going to age the way that they have in the past, because love doesn't age. Love is an eternal healing essence that keeps us forever young and vibrant, so that these body vessels will last 400, 500, 600 years, because they will be designed for the long haul. Our body vessels are designed for the short haul in the world of the ego, because it is so selfish and so greed-based and so fear-based and not enoughness, that we are operating in such incredible density. But we are going to be returning in much higher density, in much higher frequency, so that we are going to be operating from as light beings. So we got to get to that. So lots of meaningless persuasions from the ego. Hear them not. Stop listening to what the voice of the ego that wants to sell you something is trying to tell you. Stop listening to that. Be still today and listen to the truth. Go past all things which do not speak of God, whom holds your happiness within his hand, held out to you in welcome and in love. Hear only him today, and do not wait to reach him longer. Hear one voice today. And if you're going to listen to one voice today, it has to be the voice for love. And the voice for love, remember, this is why, in so many of our classes, we make the columns, the side of love, the side of fear, of ego, the side of God. It's very, very simple. The voice for God always speaks for the greater good of all. It is always uplifting for the greater good of all. It is very difficult for anybody to hear the greater good of all when they're in their ego and it is selfish and about me. This requires an incredible process of maturing, moving out of what's in it for me to how is this in service for all of humanity. And as I've said a million times, we have the documents that were channeled, that were inspired. God speaks to us in every circumstance. And those founding fathers who listened to those documents and captured that all men and women are created equal. We've all been endowed by our Creator with the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. If you are happy, you are following God's will for you. If what you do doesn't have to affect somebody else, for you to be happy doesn't have to take it from somebody else, then you are operating inside of God's will for you. If you believe that God would have you take from another for you to be happy, you are absolutely mistaken. Absolutely mistaken. And the ego loves to make up all kinds of stories, because when you are listening to the voice for God, you will be guided for what it is yours, but it will never be diminishing somebody else. And this is a place of trust that we have to cultivate and get to that, because we are totally and completely leaving a world of lack for a world of abundance, but we have not been used to what that looks like, because we have been conditioned into, I got to work and get my piece of the pie. And the thing is that when we're talking about God, there is no such thing as pieces of the pie. This is an unlimited pie for everybody to eat from forevermore. But we have to learn how to have that experience. And it's not the way that the ego has been conditioned, which has been in lack and limitation. So here, one voice today, you've got to decide, is there abundance for all, or is there scarcity? Is there love, or is there fear? Am I eternal, or am I temporary? Am I going to be in fear that I'm going to get sick and die? Then you're listening to the ego. Are you allowing whatever is happening to happen to your body while you are connecting and receiving the guidance of God, the inspiration of maybe go see this holistic doctor or go see that one? But fear will not enter into the process. It will be a certainty that you know you're taking the steps that are necessary to get you to wherever it is that you're supposed to go, because you're trusting that you are on an adventure and you're just going through the motions that are necessary for this specific lifetime. Paragraph number 4. Today, the promise of God's word is kept. Hear and be silent. He would speak to you. He comes with miracles 1,000 times as happy and as wonderful as those you ever dreamed or wish for in your dreams. His miracles are true. They will not fade when dreaming ends. It's amazing. We are so used to the dimming of the dream, because we're used to a dream that ends, that there's a start, there's a beginning to it, and you get the promotion, and then you get the money, and then you spend the money, and then there's more, and then there's less. And it's a world where the dream is constantly working really hard to stay active. Well, we want to get to the place where dreaming ends, where there is a certainty, there is a clarity, and that is what we are tapping into. But as the Course says, we have to train our mind to listen to the voice for God, which can only be felt. It's not a booming, thunderous voice. It is a feeling. It is a knowingness that is going to lead us out of the world that the ego has made. So they end the dream instead and last forever, for they come from God to his dear son, dear daughter, whose other name is you. Prepare yourself for miracles today. Today, allow your Father's ancient pledge to you and all your brothers and sisters to be kept. I know I worked very hard for a very, very long time, convincing myself and repeating the mantras of, I am entitled to miracles, I am a child of God, I am eternal. And I said it and said it and said it, but I didn't really feel the difference in my heart. It wasn't until I made a decision that the truth was true. I was not going to argue with the truth anymore. And that whatever it is that I was feeling that was other than the truth, the fears, the anxieties, that I was going to sit and observe those egoic reactions, and I was not going to engage in them. And it took me a while. I had to do this many, many, many times for a very long period of time, until I began to feel the difference of the anxiety that the ego would activate and the peace that I felt when I wasn't listening to the anxiety. And in that contrast, the peace that it passes all understanding. I mean, it really is such a beautiful, gentle knowing that all is well. And when I decided what the difference was, this peace that I felt versus the anxiety, the repetition in the head, this can't be, oh my God, rent is due. What am I going to do? There's not enough money. I didn't get another client. I didn't get this. It's another birthday. I'm going to get another year older. This is, whatever it was. I decided that I wanted to be just as familiar with the voice of the ego, so that I could be clear about all of the tricks that it uses, all of the ways that it lies. And I'm the one lying to myself, because the voice of the ego is in my head. It's not somebody else's voice that I can blame anymore. I have to acknowledge that I'm listening and agreeing to voices that are in my head. And the work is to not listen to those voices. But how do you not listen to those voices? First, you listen to them and you acknowledge them. That voice gave me anxiety. That voice made me feel bad. That voice made me feel superior. That voice made me feel inferior. And you begin to take a real honest inventory about what it is that you allow in your mind. Now, this is the kind of work that requires a very committed, diligent process that you're going to do over and over and over again, because it's a tricky voice. Sometimes it changes how it says things and sounds more like grandma one time, sounds more like dad another time, sounds more like the ex-husband or the ex-girlfriend. You want to feel the nuances of the ego, because it creates all of these different personalities that justifies all of these voices talking to you incessantly. Like Michael Singer calls them in his book, The Untethered Soul, the roommates. So you want to understand who those roommates are, so that you can have the contrast of not that, the contrast of the peace, because it's in that peace that you literally enter into a space where there's no noise, there's no chatter, or it's very little, and you can just disregard it pretty quickly, as it tells you right here in the beginning. You lay aside the ego's voice, you hear it and you don't pay attention to it because you're so well trained, and you enter into this void. And it's a peaceful place. And you learn to sit yourself. It's like you're sitting, like Gary Zukav calls it, the seat of the soul. You sit yourself within, you anchor yourself in a very peaceful place inside. And in that peaceful place, you literally hear the voice for God speaking to you. You feel it. It's almost as if it's a surround sound that you are receiving guidance. It's so clear. But for that clarity to become consistent, you must consistently turn down the volume of the ego. This amplifies as you say no to this side. And most people want this to happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. This is the practice, because it's been the practice of listening to the ego that has created all those different personalities in our head. So it's through the practice of listening to those different personalities, getting familiar with them, saying, no, I'm not going to listen to you, that then we create that space where we get to hear the voice for God inside of us that we had when we were little children, because it's the part of us that was the adventurous, the one that just wanted to try things and had no limitations. So we're getting back to that place where we're allowing ourselves to listen to the ancient pledge God made in the beginning of time. God would guide us every step of the way, but we blocked God's guidance when we got trained into the ego's voice. So now we've got to train ourselves out of the ego so that we are not waiting for God to speak to us. What we're doing is we're creating the space in which God has always been speaking. Now we can listen to it. So paragraph number 5, hear him today and listen to the word which lifts the veil that lies upon the earth, and wakes all those who sleep and cannot see. Well, yes, we see that the world right now is under a veil of illusion. Most people have no idea that they are listening to the voice of their ego, that they're following what external voices are telling them. They have no concept. I had no concept till I began to understand this. And Jesus has been telling us this for 2,000 years. So it takes however long it takes. Our work is to do what needs to be done internally so that we can wake ourselves up by lifting the veil of illusion, by removing all of those lies that have blocked our awareness to the presence that God has been there always and forevermore, attempting to guide us to experience heaven on earth. God calls to them through you. Well, as you find your peace, you're just going to become irresistible. Those who observe you in your peace, those who observe you calm and gentle, are going to be absolutely, completely enthralled by the peace that you're feeling. They're going to want to have a piece of that. Well, in order for others to be touched by those of us who are standing for the truth that sets us free, we must make a commitment not to do it for them, but to be so certain that everything that we do for ourselves is for the greater good of humanity. So you don't have to say, oh yeah, I'm going to wake up so I can help my mom wake up. Don't attempt to do that, because the ego is going to want to trick you into what you're doing is for your mom. The best way to do this is to know that whatever you do is going to serve humanity, because your mom may not be ready to wake up because of you. Your daughter may not want to wake up because of you. I have a daughter. She did not come to her journey of self-discovery through me. She had to go in a roundabout way, but then eventually got to the place where she could hear enough from others, and then we could have conversations. But I knew that I needed to free myself for me, and that served humanity, however that served humanity. But we are all being used to wake those whose veils have blocked their eyes from seeing the truth that sets us free. We have to become the one who is no longer bothered by the egoic accusations of others, by their judgments. All right, you can think whatever you want to think. It's okay. And as we allow ourselves to be grounded more and more in the truth of who we are, our peace is going to become contagious in a world that is going to get increasingly more insane. All right, let's see. So it goes on to say, sentence number 3, he needs your voice to speak to them, for who could reach God's Son except his Father, calling through yourself. Yes, because see, God is in everything that we see. You are God, I am God, everybody is God. And the more of us that are listening to God and are sharing what God is teaching us, saying to us, the more that we are in a place of compassion and kindness and gentleness, the more people are going to find out what God really is. Because up until now, we think God is a punishing God made in the image of man, because man made up God. So we are discovering God. It's very different. It's inside of us, and it shows up as you and me. So we're giving God a totally different face. It's an approachable, the face of everybody. So hear him today and offer him your voice to speak to all the multitude who wait to hear the word that he will speak today. And we'll just stop there, because I don't want to rush through the rest of this. So we just completed those 5 paragraphs. But here's the thing. God needs, and not needs because it's less than if we don't do this part. But God needs each and every one of us to begin to express the message of God as it communicates through each and every one of us. Because the world needs to see that God speaks in so many different ways, that what feels joyful and fun and is what lights me up expresses God just as much as what lights up Dondra, as what lights up Kat or Ginger or anybody. We have got to show the world that God is not only infinite, but it shows itself uniquely, differently through each and every one of us. We have to stop what the ego has done of homogenizing the world. You know, we've been listening to this crazy, insane information about what is that New World Order, the World Economic Forum, who has put out this statement that we are going to own nothing and we're going to like it. Well, who is the we that decided they tell the rest of us that we won't owe anything and we're going to like it? Are they going to give up what they have? Are we going to then monitor what they're giving up? Are they going to be happy when we take away all of their riches, everything that they have accumulated? I can promise you, because I understand the way the ego works, that those who like to walk around saying you will own nothing and you'll be happy about it are the very ones who would have a fit if we said to them, well, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy with it. Because God doesn't operate like that, which is a paradox. God, in every single one of us, is happy no matter what we have. God doesn't need anything to be happy, and that is true. We don't need to own anything to be happy. But what is not of God is that one group decides, well, you get to have it and not this one, or I get to have it, but not that one. And when the egos get involved and it attempts to decide what it is that God is going to do through any one of us, we are in the realm of the ego, attempting to control, creating specialness. I get it, but you don't, or you get it, but I don't. Until humanity is totally and completely, all of us treated equal, meaning all of us have to be given permission and preserve that right to feel our inner guidance from God directly. For a while, there will be people who will lie. Oh yeah, God told me that I could steal this car. Well, once you understand the voice for God, you know that God doesn't tell you to steal anything from anybody because God doesn't operate that way. But until we are all at 100% committed to not speaking for God in another, but instead speaking for God within ourselves and acknowledging that love is the only way, that gentleness is the only way, that individuality, that differences, that diversity is the way, but it has to be the same. Everybody has to have the same right to that individuality. We are not going to be, as a world, ready to have a world peace. It's not going to be possible until such time that we have connected to God first and foremost, and then individually hear what God has us to say, and then we embody it, and then we share it, and then we walk around in that peaceful place. The world is not going to be ready to tip so that it is operating from that complete understanding that God is love, that it will never do anything to hurt anybody. Until we get there, we are at whatever stage of the journey we are on, traveling from the ego-made world until we get to heaven on earth. But the journey is the same for each and every one of us, and that's within ourselves. That's why this lesson says, let me be still and listen to the truth. Lesson 106, we have to learn to be still. And those of us who have very chatty voices, need to sit behind the voice, let the voice do its chatty, whatever it wants to do. We become the observers of that so we can become familiar with the voices that our ego tricks us with, until we can sit deep enough in our soul, in the seat of our soul, and get really familiar with the voice that passes all understanding. Because it is such a sublime, beautiful, blissful experience that once you give yourself permission to have it, you will know without any doubt what is of God, what is of ego. You won't be tricked anymore. And that's what we need to continue to practice so that we can get to that place where we are not tricked by our own egoic voice, because the ego likes to sound like God inside of us. That's why we need honesty. That's why honesty is so important, so that we're not tricked by our ego. All right, so we completed paragraph 5. We'll come back next week, pick up on paragraph 6. And then this Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, come bring questions, whatever you want to bring, so that we can go ahead and get the Course in Miracles to speak to us, to give us its information, so that we can put this to wonderful use in our own lives. All right, so Kat, was this helpful in any way based on the space that you came to the conversation from earlier, as you were speaking about the wedding and your daughter and traveling and all of that?
Yeah. It really, one thing you said, well, not as many things you said, but expect a miracle today. Be willing to experience this. Clearly, I've not had the kind of experience that you have, and with that incredible connection. So I'm stepping into allowing a miracle. That's where I am.
But don't compare, because you have had moments, what peace feels inside of you. And that's the miracle, is to give yourself the opportunity to feel that peace again. Because when you feel that peace in you, is because, or you will feel that peace in you when you decide to override the voice of the ego. You have to be the one that gives yourself the miracle, because you are the one who's shifting your perception. Instead of entertaining the voice of the ego, sit with what this is just telling us here. I don't want to listen to the voice of ego anymore. I know all the things that could go wrong, and I know all the things that make me anxious. I want to experience total and complete peace. God, what would you have me do? What would you have me say? What would you have me feel? I am going to give you permission to activate these miracles in my life by your willingness to not listen to your ego. Stop needing to be right about your opinions.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
I know, easier said than done.
Yeah. But and yet I know the truth of that. That's deeply embedded in my soul. Yeah. So I know too much I can't be comfortable with the ego, because I recognize the ego.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you know the difference. And it's the biggest, one of the biggest tests is, can we override our righteous selves? And that you have to prove to you that you can. And the ego won't like it. But oh my gosh, your connection to God depends on it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Right.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This has been very powerful.
Good. And what about for you, Dondra, from your comments earlier? You've got all that you've got going on. Did this lesson 106, did it help you? Did you get some nuggets?
I guess I did. It goes back to render what unto Caesar what Caesar's and unto God. And as long as we live in this life that we're living in, there's some things that we're just going to have to do to uphold the law or whatever you want to call it.
To whatever level of comfort you are at. And that's what is so important, is that if you feel that there are certain rules of the world that you have to follow and it feels comfortable to follow them, by all means, follow them. But if there are other rules that you feel are nonsensical and you don't want to follow, then don't follow them, but you will do it with peace in your heart. All of us are equipped with discernment. And
Yeah, I
we
don't
know.
end up in jail with fines or anything. When I'm thinking about taxes and all this crap that we're being, anyway, just
Spend,
I'll
spend
use my own conscience.
Absolutely. That's why you have, a magnificent mind to use as you see fit, but also spend as much time imagining the world that you prefer to see, that feels in your heart, that is the next level for us to move toward. A world where everybody's treated equal, a world where we follow the wonderful constitutional documents that we have that are of fairness, that are of equality. Spend some time thinking about what you want to see manifested for the greater good of all, so that you train yourself out of the egoic, what I need to do for me so that I'm comfortable, into what I want to see for all of us, because we are all one, brothers and sisters, and train your mind into desiring that for all. I'm going to recommend, let that be your daily prayer at whatever time of the day you want to do it, but spend some time imagining what you want for the greater good of all.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are going to create it through our expectation of that, just as much as we have co-created this insane world, because we have bought into that. So we now need to give it as much time and effort to speak of and imagine and request what it is that we prefer instead. We can do it. You guys are powerful.
Amen.
Thank you. Miss Ginger, do you want to unmute yourself? Are you able to unmute yourself and just share if you got any nuggets from this today?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Yes. Sorry, I was a little late. I was finishing up with a client, but I loved the part about the still small voice. Because that's been my experience as well. I remember many years ago, I did a workshop with Ellie Harold, and she asked, how do you know when God's talking? And my mind had all kinds of, reasons, experiences, and la, 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 la. And most of them were like burning bush experiences. And then this little tiny voice said, that's because you haven't learned to listen to the still small voice yet. That's how we have to get your attention. And interesting, throughout the years, it is the still small voice where the truth really lies. It doesn't need to prove anything.
No.
Which is a wonderful feeling to have. But the only way I got into it was I had to put an alarm on my phone every hour for 12 waking hours to get into a state of unconditional love as a practice. But it made all the difference. And I just gave up on my judgments. They don't mean anything. And then I discovered you to help me with this process. And I'm so excited and thrilled to be a part of this group. Thank you for allowing me.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And all of the past calls are inside of our Patreon channel, so you can find them all there. They're all
Correct.
available. And so
Yes,
excited.
I want to listen to this one again.
Well, it'll be uploaded shortly. So Thank you all so much for being here today. And then if you want to join us Wednesday or Friday, we can get together at 3:00. And I'm open to any ideas or suggestions of what topics you might want to talk about. If we want to come together for a specific reason, talk about something specific in the course, just share what you want. I mean, I want this Patreon community to be where you, the community, decides what is it that we're doing. So I love you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.